Hrgovic for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. Mr. Carl Frampton.
How are you, Oscar?
Joyce me. I'm good, mate. I'm good. More importantly, how are you?
I'm good. Starting a new job now with DAZN. I've kind of known for the last few weeks, but we've had to keep it all hush. But buzzing to get going, and it's this weekend, my first fight night as a DAZN pundit, so really looking forward to it.
How many jobs have you had? Professional boxer, TNT pundit, DAZN pundit, but I'm talking early jobs. Like
I had
man in the bar, paper round.
No. I helped. Did you have lemonade delivery man over here? No, I don't think.
Lemonade delivery man.
Yeah, so there's a
I
company,
did not know that was a thing.
So I helped the lemonade man deliver lemonade.
Right.
So it's a pretty big thing. Maybe not so much anymore, but in Northern Ireland, everyone had their lemonade delivered at a point.
It's one for the CV.
Yeah.
I mean, fighting in the States, beating Leo Santa Cruz, selling out the Odyssey, and lemonade salesman.
Yeah.
One for the
Yeah.
CV.
I applied for a job in Big W as well. Remember Big W? Used to be like Woolworths, and then I think they rebranded Big W.
Okay.
Didn't get it.
Right.
No.
Little did they know what you were going to achieve, eh?
Yeah.
It's them who missed out. You retired 4 years ago. Actually, it was 4 years ago, April. Am I right? Around this time after the fight with Jamal. Has your time in broadcasting kind of filled that void?
It certainly helped, but I don't think I got asked the question pretty much on a daily basis, like, do you miss boxing? And the answer is always no. I really don't, and I was probably looking out towards the end. But this, like after the Jamal Hearn fight, even if I had won that fight, I was retiring. Like, and that was the plan, to win it and be a 3-weight world champion and go out on a massive high. Didn't work out like that. Got filled in and then retired anyway. But I would never. I don't think I would have ever came back after that fight anyway.
Was there some tempting offers?
No, there was no offers. Okay. No, everyone knew it was done, including myself.
I was going to say, you made it quite clear. I remember you in your statement saying people close to me knew, win, lose or draw, that was going to be the outcome. But in those 4 years, obviously boxing has changed massively. Riyadh season has pushed things on a new level. We've had champions come and go. Frank and Eddie are best pals. I'll use quote marks for now. We'll see how the DAZN rivalry goes. But boxing's just, I mean, it's always moving, but it's changed massively since you left the sport.
It has. It's always, I mean, I wish, I've said this loads of times, I wish the Saudis were involved in boxing around 2015, 16 when I was in my pump, but maybe they wouldn't have been interested. They like the big guys, don't they, the big heavyweights, so. But it's good. I mean, we're getting to see all the big fights happening now. You've got two of the top promoters in the world, and Eddie and Frank, if they're not both the top promoters in the world right now, on the same platform, along with Golden Boy as well. And an easy criticism to throw at the boxing business was the best aren't fighting the best. Now that's starting to change, and long may it continue.
On this relationship that Frank and Eddie have got now, obviously you know both, you've worked with both, fought on their shows. It's something that Barry Hearn said. He said, I always said to Eddie, if you were to sit down and have a glass of wine or some food with Frank, you'd really like him. And they've both actually found that when they've kind of been in each other's presence. Did you think that? Did you think if you two come together, you two would get on?
And I think, and I'm not saying anyone's lying here as well, but I think there's always a few wee sound bites throughout. I think Barry probably disliked Frank as well. You know what I mean? pretending that it's a nice story that, but. I didn't think I would ever see the day with this poly.
Yeah. And on the same platform.
And on the same platform, yeah. But it's good. It means that we're going to see Queensberry fighters fighting Matchroom fighters a lot more often, which we very, very rarely seen previous to this.
Yeah. And it's the rise of DAZN, of course, as well. I know even Frank's kind of said there's been naysayers. I was a naysayer, he said. But it's kind of hard to deny that DAZN is the global home of boxing.
Well, it is. I mean, you look at what's going on and the amount of I think it's 185 shows, and that's, you know, you've got a mixture of unbelievable fights, the best fighting the best, the stuff that the Saudis are putting together. you've got flipping Canelo's fighting Terence Crawford in the near future. This thing that they're doing in Madison Square Garden, you know what I mean? It's incredible. Alcatraz, like unbelievable. It really is unbelievable, and certainly boxing is the only thing that I know anything about really, and any sort of great depth. So I had to be here for the ride.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get kind of Frank's run with DAZN underway, and obviously good to see you on board. Joyce Hrgovic to kick it off. I want to talk about Joyce because, and Frank again, if we're going to Frank, he's been asked this question, or even Joe's been posed this question. A lot of people are perhaps pushing retirement towards Joe, but he's fighting Filip Hrgovic. A win here is huge. Where do you kind of sit with that? Because people are quite keen to go, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing Joe hang the gloves up, but this is a guy still fighting at that top level.
I don't know where I sit really. I mean, I suppose Joe and Hrgovic are not the youngest guys in the world anymore. I think a defeat is probably the end of the road for either man. Certainly Joe anyway, he's lost 3 in his last 4. And the one that he won, he didn't look overly impressive. But I think a lot of it's down to confidence with Big Joe. Hopefully he gets it back and we see him back to doing what he does best. We know what he's like, Joe. He takes shots. He takes plenty of shots just to land 1 or 2 of his own, but he's got the biggest engine that I've ever seen in the heavyweight. Humongous engine. But as long as he doesn't get hit too clean, too early, too often in this fight, I think he has a chance in the second half. I still have Hrgovic as the favourite, but I hope I'm wrong there, and hopefully Joe can pull it off. But I understand why people are calling for retirement. You have to, like Joe, the way Joe fights, like he relies on his chin. But when you get hit as often as Joe does, because defensively he's not brilliant, and I think he would admit that himself, the resistance literally gets punched out of you, and that's what happens. And I just hope that too much of it hasn't been punched out of Joe.
Yeah. And in terms of Filip Hrgovic, I know he's come out and said he wasn't 100% for the Daniel Dubois fight, but for that to be your sole defeat, there's still quite a lot of life in the career of Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah, I think he lost to Zhang as well when they fought a few years previous to that. But he, the big issue with Hrgovic, I fancied Daniel Dubois pretty strongly in that fight, and part of the reason was Hrgovic gasses, doesn't he? And he gasses in the second half. I remember, I think the Zhang fight was only a 10-rounder, and he was holding on from about round 6. So, I don't know. He's not the youngest in the world anymore. I'm not sure. Is he? He must be 37, similar age to me, something like that. But yeah, it could be the end of the road for him as well if Joe beats him, considering what's happened to Joe in his last few fights. So I think that makes it really interesting and probably just adds a wee bit more to each guy's performance. They know that they have to win or their career's over.
Yeah, I like it. 2 big guys fighting for their career at the top level. It's going to be a big throwdown. Can't wait. In terms of the heavyweights, it was all going so perfectly, and then it's been a bit stagnant. Obviously, Dubois pulled out against Joseph Parker with illness, and Bacoli come in last minute. Fury retires. Joshua's got this injury. There's Joshua Jake Paul rumours and whatnot. What do you want to see? Because I feel like we still need to see Daniel Dubois fight Joseph Parker, but Frank's obviously going to want, and Team Dubois are going to want the Usyk fight. What do you want to see, and how do you want to see the heavyweights kind of pan out as we close the second half of this year?
Well, I don't think we can complain too much considering what we have seen in recent years with the heavyweights. But I would love to see Dubois. I'd love to see him in with Usyk again.
Completely different fight.
Yeah, I think so. He's a better fighter now than he was then. And again, a lot of it's down to confidence with Daniel. I'd love to see Dubois and Parker as well. Bacoli, when he's fit, I think gives anybody in the world problems. You throw him into the mix as well. I mean, there's big fights to be made, and what's really good here is they don't have to be for titles of any sort of meaning really. And we're seeing the big guys fighting each other, getting well paid for it, obviously, but titles a lot of the time aren't on the line. But as long as the top 10-ish, 15 are continually linked with fighting each other, I'm happy enough with that.
And Chisora sitting well with the IBF as well. Adamant on, I think it might have been TalkSport, but I may be wrong. Adamant that number 50 is going to be Daniel Dubois. It's going to be at Wembley Stadium. Look, whatever it is, Chisora deserves to bow out with a big one. But obviously there are fights that people are going to want to see ahead of obviously Derek and Dubois and Usyk.
He may get his way, depending on what Usyk decides to do and who he wants to fight next. If he maybe fight someone like Joe Parker and then Derek is the mandatory for Daniel. Who knows what will happen? But I love Derek. I think he's brilliant. He's been brilliant for the sport. Look at the fan base that he has. I mean, look what he done in Manchester in his last fight against Otto Wallin. Almost, I think he did fill the place out. They're very, very close to it. Derek's someone I have so much admiration for, but a fight against Daniel Dubois is very, very... It's a very dangerous one for him, I think. I'd be worried he would get hurt. Yeah. And I wouldn't like to see that. I really wouldn't. But I'd like to see him sign out in a big win. You know what I mean? Just go out and beat someone relatively decent. I don't think he's going to beat the very top guys in the world, but someone maybe like an Andy Ruiz or someone like that, a former world champion. I think that's a good fight for him rather than Daniel Dubois. Yeah.
One thing he does believe he can sign off with is getting both Eddie and Frank to walk him to the ring.
Yeah.
Is that surely not? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen him saying that. Could you see it?
Arm in arm, Frank one side, Eddie the other.
Derek can make it happen.
If anyone could, it would be Derek.
Yeah, I think if he said that, and well, I mean, if it's against Dubois, Frank's not going to walk the ring with him. You know what I mean? So it depends.
Eddie definitely might.
It depends who the opponent is, but if anyone can make it happen, it's Derek.
What about these AJ, Jake Paul, say rumours? It's just a little bit of noise. Is that something AJ should entertain?
No, it's bullshit. I mean, for fuck's sake. I was going to say a 10-second fight, but it's not even. It's just it could be a 2-second fight. You know, as soon as AJ lands, that's it. That's it over. So, Jake Paul does really well, doesn't he? I mean, it wasn't that long ago where he was talking about he wanted to fight Canelo and stuff, and again, that's maybe a 4-second fight.
Just depending on how quickly you can get across the ring.
He gets... I don't mind Jake Paul. I have a fair bit of respect for him, actually, because I think you have to separate him from the kind of misfit type fighters. I think he's trying, and he trains hard, and he's actually okay. He's not bad, but he can't beat Canelo, and he definitely can't beat AJ.
Yeah, I think there's pound signs in his eyes more than hopes of victory. I've got to ask you about Crocker Donovan. I remember you saying you weren't at the first fight, were you?
No,
I thought everyone was looking for your reaction after.
Yeah, I was.
We were in Belfast.
I was in Bournemouth doing Ryan Garner's show, which was a great night as well. But I would have loved to have been in Belfast for that one.
Rematch ordered now.
Rematch ordered, and you know, apparently Crocker wanted the rematch, which is good to see. I know for a fact that Crocker is a lot better in that performance, but Paddy Donovan was exceptional on the night. Crocker, not as good as I've seen him, and it gives him the chance to kind of right a wrong. But just because of how one-sided it was, you'd have to have Paddy Donovan as the favourite. But in the same breath, there's talk about it maybe happening at Windsor Park, and that gives Lewis a bit more of a chance and a wee bit of an edge. And what I do know for a fact is Lewis has to be better than he was in the last fight, and he will be. I mean, he's a much better fighter in that performance.
Yeah. What did you make of Billy Nelson saying that Eddie was two-faced? I know it's obviously quite a hard situation for Eddie to be in, represents both men, said he was, I'm not getting involved in any IBF appeal. But Billy said that, whilst Lewis was getting stitched up, Eddie was in Paddy Donovan's changing room talking about, rematch this, rematch that. Seems like there's a bit of heat between
I
Billy
mean,
and Eddie now.
I think so, but I get it. You know what I mean? Billy's obviously upset that his fighter has taken a lot of criticism. They have their points, which are valid points as well, in terms of how many times Paddy fouled in the fight. And they reckon that kind of hindered Lewis's performance and certainly affected his eye as well. But I'm going to stay with that one, Billy. I like Billy and I like Eddie as well, believe it or not. So I understand where Billy's coming from, but I mean, who knows what went on in that situation? If the kid's in getting his eye stitched up, maybe it's best just to leave him alone while that's happening.
Yeah. It's an emotionally charged situation, an emotionally charged fight. Final one, did you see Liam Cameron on TalkSport with his contract?
Yeah. Sack the lawyer in the morning. Whoever,
is he right not to budge?
Absolutely, 100%. If whoever's written that contract up and said a 12-round fight and sent it over to Liam Cameron to sign, and then in turn, I think Ben Whittaker, imagine, signed the same contract. What? Like who's made that mistake? What a moron! Like bizarre. But if I'm Liam Cameron and Frank Warren, I'm holding firm, and it just makes it. I just the way the first fight went, I was fancying Liam Cameron in the rematch. The fact that it's a 12-rounder, what seems to be a 12-rounder at this point, he's got to be a strong favourite. Has to be.
Yeah. What's your relationship like with Ben? Because obviously there was that clip the clip of you on Frampton fighting. I know a lot of people asked Ben about it, and it was a couple of weeks ago. But just what's your relationship like?
I don't have a relationship with him. I spoke to Ben after I put after that thing came out with Frotch, and I told him the reason why. Did I call him a bell end, I think, or whatever it was? I can't remember, but I told him the reason why. He, I don't want to go into it too much, but he kind of gave his explanation. I don't quite believe it, if I'm being honest, but each to their own. And maybe I was a bit harsh, pairing him along with the two McGuigans as the top 3 bell ends in boxing, but I'd say he's probably outside the top 10, if I'm being honest.
Okay. So he just took the hit on a bad day.
He just came to my head for some reason. I don't know why. He was the first person I thought of, but I don't know why.
Carl, you're the man.
Thanks, mate.
Congratulations on the new gig with DAZN, and mate, we all can't wait for it to get started and see you dissecting some of the biggest and best fights on the best platform.
Thanks, appreciate it, mate. Thank you.